Messaging is literally everything when it comes to your marketing. What problem are you solving? What is the outcome, the benefit that this person is going to receive because they've worked with you on this? And that's what you just need to nail in your messaging. And I think that it's really hard for people to do that because they are so in it. It's like the curse of expertise.
Hey, Katie, welcome to the show.
Hey, how are you? Good to be here.
Thanks for being here. I'm excited to talk with you today about pulling some content levers and helping with the pipeline, all this kind of fun stuff. Before we dive in, what are you kind of known for in the content marketing world or just in general as a marketer?
I couldn't land on one thing for this, so I'm going to say three. Okay. The first one is messaging is literally everything when it comes to your marketing. How you talk about yourself, the words that you use are the core of it all. Like, you can have the clearest differentiation. You can want to position yourself in a certain way. You can have a great brand. You can have all these wonderful services. But if you can't talk about it clearly and articulate what you do and who you do it for and why it matters in a way that's going to resonate with your audience, then you're just not going to be successful. So messaging is everything. It is it's the most important thing. The second thing is pain points aren't enough, right? Like everybody wants to talk about, market the pain, or market the problem, but you have to go deeper than that. And you have to really understand the buying trigger for the customer. What is the little thing that's going to push them to the point where they say, you know what? It's time to actually get some help here. It's time to figure this out, because problems and pain can be ignored for a long time, worked around, just fixes, internal fixes, whatever. But there is a moment where that buying trigger comes in. And then the third thing, and I think this is just as important as the other two, is that you have to really understand your customers. And I call that voice of the customer, right? Like knowing how the customer thinks, how they talk about their problems, what they're experiencing in their context. And if you don't have that information, then it is upon you to find it. You can do research. I mean, there are plenty of ways to do research, but the easiest and most straightforward one is to just literally talk to your customers and ask them the questions that you need to know to understand how to talk, how to message, how to market, where they found you, what their buying triggers are, how they position you in their heads. There's so much that you can learn just by talking to your customers. And I think that it's something that businesses don't do enough of. They make a lot of assumptions and not a lot of verifiable information.
Great. Yeah. 3 talking points you're known for. That second one really is familiar to me. We've been connected a while on LinkedIn, and I heard you speak on the pain points aren't enough topic. It was helpful for me to kind of rethink it. You need to think about what are the buying triggers.
And I think that in the world that we live in, like professional services, consulting, B2B, the problems that we're solving are very complex and multi-layered, and there's a lot of nuance, and there's a lot of stuff that can be happening behind the scenes for our customers that we're not aware of. And, that is why it is easy for them sometimes to ignore the specific pain point or to push it off or to procrastinate or to do whatever with it until it becomes something that's unignorable. And sometimes the problem is so much deeper than what the customer is actually seeing and experiencing. The root cause issue is much farther down into the weeds than what they're actually seeing and experiencing. And that's why you need to understand the voice of your customer. What is their perspective? What is their specific context?
This is good stuff. I could keep asking about that. But what I really want to talk about today is content marketing for the purpose of smoothing out or greasing the pipeline. Across the pipeline, love to hear about your perspective on that. I got a few questions about that. So first of all, give us some context about, is this for a B2B context, B2C? Where do you see this really helpful?
I work mostly with B2B clients, particularly in kind of the agency, consulting, professional services space. For most of these businesses, they've really built their business and their reputation on referrals and recommendations, which is great. I mean, that proves that you have a solid business model, that you're delivering quality service, that you have, proven results, but it does leave you're not in control of your pipeline. You're not in control of your lead flow when you're relying on referrals. The other side of that is that Buying behavior has really changed. And I think that AI has blown this up in a lot of ways. Like there is so much research and qualification that people can do for trying to find a service provider without ever having to talk to a salesperson ever, right? Like they don't have to visit your website. They don't have to talk to you. They don't have to look at anything. They can just see what you're doing on AI or see what you're doing on LinkedIn or whatever and kind of narrow down a short list of who they want to speak to. They're not even on your radar yet, right? So, that is why I think it is kind of this paradox of content has become so prolific and it's become so easy to produce. AI has made it so easy for so much content to go out there like super fast, and people are producing so much more of it. But at the same time, it is so much more important now to the B2B buying process than I think it probably ever has been before, because the ways that people are searching and the ways that they're finding answers and the expectations that they have for where and how they're going to find those answers depend on the content that you're producing.
So what you're saying kind of reminds me of like how back in the day, people were like, websites, who needs one? Now everybody knows you need a website for your business to be a legitimate business. And I think content has kind of made its way into that space now where you actually need content to be a legitimate business. But it's still crazy to me how many businesses that are selling high ticket, they're doing virtually nothing for content. Can you share an example of like anything where you've seen like content being done, but it's like not at all hitting the standard?
Yeah. I mean, I want to back up though to one point that you made about websites. For, those of us kind of in this B2B consulting space, like I actually don't think your website is as important. I mean, yes, you need one, right? But it serves a different purpose than maybe it would have 10 years ago. Like 10 years ago, your website would have been a main discovery platform. People would have Google searched something, and then found the top 10 links and clicked on your website. And that would be where they would start to have a relationship with you. That has shifted dramatically, I think. Now people are discovering you through podcasts or what you're publishing online on Substack or your LinkedIn or through AI searches. There's all these other discovery channels that your website, I think, has moved down the funnel a little bit to like more of like a validation or a consideration. Like, okay, I'm kind of interested in this guy, Justin. Like, let me go check out his business and see what's going on there. Is he legit? Like, what kind of services does he offer? It's a step that they take after they've already gotten interested enough to, to trust you and to take that step. So the website, the role of the website, I think has really changed. I still think they matter 100%. You can't not have a website, but it's not necessarily where you need to worry about people finding you or discovering.
You're absolutely right. It's important, but it's not quite as important as it used to be. I mean, anecdotally, I can share the same. Like I have people finding me through LinkedIn, through the other one I had the other day was a Grok. I was in the top 3 results for somebody doing using Grok to use. This Italian guy who's trying to get into video again. Give me the top 3 places people I should be talking to or agencies, and I was on there. Or even what strikes me, what's crazy, I do a lot of networking calls with peers. I think that's how you and I connected. LinkedIn, hey, we serve some more audience, let's chat. And the vast majority of people I talk to, even prospects, they never visit my website. I'll just meet Justin. I'll talk to him. I'm right straight from the horse's mouth. It's a minority, a very small minority. I'd probably say 20% or less that actually visit my website before we even ever talk, including prospects, because you're getting the information from my LinkedIn, or it's that 0-click marketing stuff, right?
Yeah, exactly. I've never visited your website, to be honest with you. But I was having this conversation with one of my clients earlier today. He was kind of worried, like, should we be doing more with SEO or and I was like, no, like this is not something that you need to focus on right now. Like where you need to be focused for the goals that you have are on producing good content, good thought leadership that's out there in a place where people can discover it organically. It's not about driving traffic to your website so that they can, look at your services page. If they go to your website, great. They're probably going to buy from you. That's a good, strong signal. So that's it's just that role has changed of the website.
So that brings me to the main point I want to ask is like, Katie, got it. Website's part of the puzzle. It's not the whole puzzle. How should we be thinking about content in relationship to pipeline? As a service business, I'm a service business. You are one. You serve them, consultants, agencies. how should we be thinking about content in that, from that pipeline perspective?
Well, first off, I think that your content needs to be buyer centric. It needs to be about enabling your buyers to make a choice. Like you're serving them. Your first duty of service to them is to help them make a choice, whether it's to choose to work with you or to choose to work with somebody else. So your content in that way serves as a filter. You're filtering in the clients who are going to be the right fit for you and filtering out the ones that are not going to be a right fit, which means you need to be answering a lot of the questions that they would have normally had once you got them on the phone and you would have a sales call. How much does it cost? What does the process look like? What is an engagement? What are the results? What are the case studies? These are all of the things that help not only people get to know you and understand you, but also to start to trust you. And that's the role I think that content plays there. So, it's not so much about maybe like 10 years ago or 5 years ago, why you should get a video consultant or something like that. Very top of funnel. The goal was to drive somebody to your website to get this common question answered and then be like, oh, Justin's the video guy to work with. Now it's more about, hey, I already know that I need this service and I already have done all this research on, wherever else to understand what it's about. Now I want to know if I should choose you. So content, I think, is moving a little bit further down funnel in that sense of answering some of those more specific questions because those sales calls are not happening. 80% of the sales process is happening without you even being in the room.
Buyers and B2B are constant. We're just all researching before we ever talk to a person in the sales team. The nature of the internet, right? We can research anything now. Yeah. Is it just that simple or is there anything we're missing from this discussion?
I am a big believer in keeping it simple. Like, I don't think that you have to overcomplicate it. And honestly, a lot of my clients that I'm working with are very small agency owners or small professional services consultancies where the buyer journey is not this lengthy, like multi-touch attribution type of situation. It is just, we need a thing or we need a service. We need to choose between you and 3 other people that we're talking to. And how do we know that you're the best one? They're going to have come to you through some channel that has led them to trust you. And then you're going to get on the phone with them and maybe have 1-2 conversations to sort of prove that you know what you're talking about and then work out a deal.
Do you find you're usually recommending the same formats of content and the same content process to most clients? Or, 80-20 rule? Is it 80% the same, 20% different? Or is it different every time? I'd love to know about kind of the shape of the content strategies you recommend.
For me, because most of my clients are in the same general space, then the content strategy is pretty similar. Like I always recommend that people are on some sort of discovery channel, like whether it's having a Substack or whether it's investing in, having your own podcast or being a guest on podcasts or seeking out speaking engagements or whatever, like something that makes you discoverable. And then of course, having LinkedIn. LinkedIn is the cornerstone for pretty much all B2B professional services. It's where we talk to each other and where we find each other. So I think those 2 things are probably the most important. Now, that being said, there are businesses for whom they're not necessarily a content-led go-to-market strategy, right? For us, we have a content-led go-to-market strategy. Our content is how we are discovered and it's how we build trust. But other businesses might have a sales-led go-to-market process where it's like reps in the field and they're out selling, manufacturing products or, goods and services or whatever. Or they might have more of like a platform-led or a community-led go-to-market strategy. And those are very different. And those are places where content might not have as central of a role.
Right. Yeah. Strategies are all different depending on niches and even stages of business. So we're talking in the context really of a professional services context, which I love. I mean, that's a very similar niche that I serve. A lot of listeners of our podcast are professional service providers, either solopreneur or in-house. When you're talking about this, across the pipeline, are there any opportunities that professional service firms that are they're leaving on the table that you're seeing over and over and over again that they may not have been thinking about?
Just email marketing in general, right? Like, I think a lot of people do it and not a lot of people do it necessarily well, right? Like, there's this idea of the newsletter where it's like, let's send out all of our company updates and, our industry news. And that's just not going to be effective. How many emails do you get a day? How many lists have you ended up on, and you're just delete, 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 delete. I think that the newsletters or the emails that I read are the ones that give me something to think about, that provide me with some sort of information or understanding that I didn't have before. That is a mistake that a lot of B2B professional services companies do, is that they might have the newsletter, but they're just doing it in a way that's probably not getting the kind of readers that they want to have.
How could a professional service firm know where the gaps are in their content in regards to the pipeline? I think the reason I ask that is because often we tend to, as humans, go, oh, I'm doing that, I'm good. I call it checkbox marketing. How can we know where the gaps are when it comes to our content?
And I think that I would kind of just look at it as really think about where people are finding you. Where are you discoverable, right? And do you have content that's out there that makes you discoverable? Publicly available content, right? Like, it's published somewhere where somebody doesn't have to search for it. They're just going to kind of come across it, right? And then the content that falls into the consideration phase, or the phase where people are trying to trust you. Like, where are you publishing for that? That's typically your newsletter, your LinkedIn, maybe your other social media channels, and then your conversion channels. What content do you have in that bucket, right? That's going to be definitely your website. It's probably going to still be some of your email content. It might be specific sales pages or services pages on your website that people are looking at, your marketing materials or presentations or whatever it is that you do, depending on the way that your sales process works. First off, am I doing something in each of these areas? And then the second question would be, not only do I have content in each of these areas, but is what I have produced, does it currently match where my business is right now? Businesses evolve and change over time. You're learning from your customers, and content tends to fall behind. Your messaging tends to get left behind when the business evolves. You don't always go back and check and make sure that, all of the blog posts that you have or the Substack articles that you have published and live are truly reflective of who you are right now. Having a regular process to go back and evaluate all of those things and then ask yourself, is this still who we are right now? I think those are kind of the two things that might reveal some gaps. But the biggest gap that I tend to figure out with my clients is that what they're saying about themselves, how they're describing themselves, doesn't really match what their customers or buyers need to hear in order to make a decision about them. They're just not clear. They're just not articulating clearly what it is that they do, in a way that people can understand. And that is really the first problem that needs to get solved. You have to be able to explain what you do clearly. And it seems like such a simple thing, but it's very hard. We offer a lot of services as professional consultants and whatever, and the things that we solve are very complex. And narrowing down the focus of how you pinpoint the specific thing, the specific pain point and solution and outcome that you offer. It's what problem are you solving? What is the outcome, the benefit that this person is going to receive, or the capability that they're going to gain because they've worked with you on this or that they've done this thing? And that's what you just need to nail in your messaging. And I think that it's really hard for people to do that because they are so in it. It's like the curse of expertise.
Yeah, I think about the curse of the expert. I think it's also called the curse of knowledge. It affects everybody at any varying point of knowledge. I love the shape of our conversation. You never know what you're going to get. Earlier before the show, I wanted to know if there was an example of a client that kind of illustrated that pipeline, the content across the pipeline. Can we talk about that just to bring it home for us?
I think the best example that I could give that's just going to be the clearest. So I was working for this healthcare company, And they had a pretty complex patient journey of like how patients discovered them and then how they, considered them, enrolled in and became a patient, and, all of these questions along the way. Like when you're dealing with like a medical kind of a treatment, people are going to have a lot of questions about that. And one of the things, first, we mapped out the entire communications journey, like every touch point that they were experiencing or seeing before they actually showed up for all the way up until the point where they walk through the door for their first appointment. And then matched, okay, what questions or concerns are they going to have at this point? Like, what is going to be the barrier that's going to be kind of the yes, no decision maker for them to either move forward or drop out of this at each point? And then how do we address that concern with a piece of content that can give them their next best choice to move forward with, with the next step that we want them to take? So when you think about like top level, hot top of funnel, it, might have been like, well, how does this kind of treatment compare to other treatments? Or what are the benefits of doing this way? And why would I consider this? And then you get into a little bit further down. It's like, okay, what can I expect out of this process? Like, what is this? How long is this going to take? What is it going to look like? What's it going to feel like? And then, the final stage of being like, okay, here's how you actually need to be prepared for this. Like, what you need to have when you walk in the door, what the first appointment is going to look like, all of these sort of like, more tactical, I guess, questions that would need to be answered through that process. And then we built in what the actual mechanics looked like for how we were going to deliver that. Some of that content went out on our social media channels because we were at the top of the funnel. Some of that content went out in our weekly emails or newsletters where we were capturing leads and then sending out additional information there. Some of it went in one-to-one emails from like the care provider to the patient potentially. Some of it was, designed for like, if they say no and they need to move back, what do we send them there? So there were all these different places and like the mechanics of that workflow had to get worked out. But yeah, that was kind of how we did it.
Wow. That sounds like that'd be very thorough in a patient setting. Well, Katie, thank you for the conversation today. Where can people learn more about you?
KateTurnerMarketing.com, or you can find me on LinkedIn, Katie Turner. I also had a Substack. It's called The Marketing Fix, and that's where I write about all of these things. So you can check me out there as well.
All right. Well, Katie, thank you again.
Thank you.